Hey guys, we are doing lesson 2 in science today, so please make sure you have your packet open to classifications lesson 2, plants, animals, and fungi kingdoms. You will also need a highlighter and a pen or pencil. I prefer you to use pencil, but if a pen is what you have, then you may grab it, okay? So we're going to actually start off with word attack, and then I'm going to move to a separate piece of paper and show you some different things. So the first word is fungi. What word? Get ready. Yes, fungi is the plural word, so meaning more than one, to fungus, okay? Fungus is singular, meaning there would only be one kind of fungus. Fungi, two or more, okay? Next one is organism. What word? Get ready. Yes, organism. The next one is kingdom. What word? Get ready. Yes, kingdom. So our vocabulary words. Okay, plant kingdom. Plant kingdom are things that cannot move, but they make their own food. We'll talk about that in just a second, all right? Animal kingdom. Animal kingdom can move, but they cannot make their own food. And then fungi kingdom are plants without leaves, stems, or roots. It feeds off other organisms. All right, what is another name for a trait or characteristic? Think about it. Think. It is feature. Okay, so this is review from last time. What is classification? Classification is organizing different organisms into different characteristics or features. What is the study of classification? Study is classification of taxonomy. And who was the father of taxonomy? The father of taxonomy was Carl Linnaeus. Okay? All right, our big idea today is organisms are divided into kingdoms. So plants, animals, and fungi by their features, such as how they get their food or how they move. So let's start off. We're going to look at this chart. So right here, I have my movement column, okay? So this first one, this top row is movement. Think of a plant. Think of a flower sitting in the ground. That flower cannot move. So therefore, its movement is it cannot move. But how does it get its food? It gets its own food by photosynthesis. Okay, so it's using the sunlight to make its own food. Animals can move, but they cannot make their own food. They have to eat other plants or animals. So they can't go sit out in the sun and do what a flower does. They can't use photosynthesis. So they actually have to either go hunt or find their own food. Fungus. Funguses are mushroom, mildew, and mold. They decompose or break down dead things and absorb their food. So, right here, they cannot move, okay? But they don't have roots like a plant, okay? They slowly spread out and get larger, but they cannot move. And they decompose dead things, okay, such as animals, plants that fall to the ground. Usually you can find a lot of funguses in forests or where you'll find like a lot of dead trees or other dead animals, okay? All right. So, starting with the reading part, make sure you are following along. Either you can look at my screen, but I know it's going to be a little fuzzy just because sometimes it makes the small print look fuzzy. Or you may also follow along in your book, okay? Or sorry, your packet. I know you don't have a book. Scientists who study living things or organisms also use classification. One of the features scientists look at is how it gets its food. So, first thing that it looks at is how a plant or animal or other organism gets its food. So I'm going to highlight that, okay, because that's very important, okay? Plants usually make their own food light from sunlight, water, and air, while animals do not. Again, I read an important thing. It was already bolded, so I'm going to highlight it because it's important. Okay, so plants, they make their own food using the sunlight, water, and air, and using sunlight is called photosynthesis. We've talked about this before. in past years about photosynthesis. Animals can usually move themselves while plants can't. So I'm just going to highlight the animals can usually move themselves. Based on features like these, scientists have classified living things into two large groups called kingdoms, okay? We're actually going to add two more kingdoms on, but not right now. So, looking at these pictures, how do plants get their food? Look at it. How do plants get their food? From the sunlight. The sunlight comes down and plant creates a natural sugar that they use to eat and survive, okay? Now, animals. How do animals get their food? Either, think of us. We are an animal, technically. How do we get our food? I can't go outside and lay in the sun to absorb the sunlight and to get the food I need. No, I would either have to go out to my garden and pick something to eat, or I would have to go hunting in the woods, or I could just easily now, in today's time, go to a supermarket and buy the Cheez-Its that I want to eat, okay? But our other animals out in the wild, a pig you usually have to feed them, but they'll eat about anything. A wolf would have to go hunting or be provided or find food. And then I think if I remember right, this is a type of monkey and he's been given the food. But yeah, they'll find their own food, okay? So, the two kingdoms that scientists like Carl Linnaeus agreed on are plants and animal kingdoms. Those organisms that made their own food and did not move would be plants, and those that could move and obtain food by eating other organisms would be animals. Within these kingdoms, we can classify organisms into smaller groups, okay? So we start with this really big, broad group, okay? So animals. Animals can move, but they need to find food, okay? So we have our animal kingdom. Plants. Plants cannot move. They grow, but they do not move, but they produce their own food, okay? But then we have fungi who don't move also, but they decompose what's around them, okay? So they decompose the dead things around them, whether that be leaves, trees, or an animal. Once the microscope was invented, scientists discovered many new organisms that seemed to be neither plant nor animal. These observations led to the creation of 3 additional kingdoms. The first new kingdom created was the fungi kingdom. Okay, so the fungus kingdom, or fungi, is what we're going to call it because that means there's more than one. The kingdom fungi includes mushrooms, yeast, mold, and mildew. Many fungi seem like plants, but they do not make their own food from sunlight. Instead, they are decomposers. This means that they get their energy from breaking down materials from dead plants and dead animals. So I'm going to highlight that because that whole little part is super important, okay? So if you have your highlighter, make sure you highlight that, okay? Fungi reproduce by sending out millions of teeny spores, which are blown by the wind to where they start new fungus colonies. So, this picture right here, mine is a little blurry, but you can look at it closer, okay? So, we're going to start with the big mushroom, okay? The big mushroom then sends out its spores, these little tiny things, and then they attach, and then they start to grow, and then eventually they become the new fully formed fungus, okay? In this case, we're looking at a mushroom. Mushrooms probably are most common, that when we look at it, we know it's a fungus, okay? All right, let's now start our lesson questions. Just a heads up, these answers do not need to be in complete sentences, so don't feel like you have to make them into complete sentences, okay? All right, so the first sentence says, what were the 2 first kingdoms all organisms were divided into? Okay, what were the first 2? The first one was plants, because we had Carl Linnaeus, he studied plants, and he was a botanist, and animal. All right, make sure you have that written down. What do scientists look at to help them classify organisms? Remember what that word is? It is called features. Okay, they look at their features. So the features for plants are 1, they cannot move, and 2, they make their own food. And then the 2 features for animals are they can move, but they can't make their own food. What 2 features classify an organism in the plant kingdom? I just said it. Cannot move. Oops. Cannot move. And make own food. Make own food. All right, make sure you have that written down. I accidentally made my N, one of my N's into an M, but it should be cannot move, and they make their own food. Okay, what are 2 features that classify an organism in the animal kingdom? So now I'm talking about the animal kingdom. Remember that they can move, can't make own food. Can't make own food. Just meaning their bodies cannot. So when we say they can't make their own food, we could still grow food, right? I can go outside and plant some tomatoes, but my body can't make its own food, okay? What is an important role fungi play in the ecosystem? Okay, they're decomposers. If we did not have them, our forests would be full of just dead animals and dead trees and dead plants, okay? So they decomposer, or they break down dead things. Okay, so they just break them down and they absorb them, and it's their source of food. So let's do a quick review. Some of these answers will be on here. Some of them you're going to have to think really hard, okay? So think about this. What is an organism? Think about it. Think. An organism is any living thing. If you said any living thing, awesome job. The next question is, what 2 features classify an organism into a plant kingdom? I wrote this down. Number 3, what is it? They cannot move and they make their own food. The next question says, what 2 features classify an organism in the animal kingdom? For animal kingdom, what is it? Think. It is animals can move and cannot make their own food. What do we call a biologist that studies in classification? This is a review from last time. Think about it. It is a taxonomist. What is it who specializes in classification? Get ready. Taxonomist. Yes, taxonomist. Who is the first great pioneer to study taxonomy? Think about it. It is Carl Linnaeus. Remember, he studied botany and he started sorting plants into different classifications. What is another word for a trait or characteristic? We use that today. It is features. What word? Get ready. Yes, features. Why do we use Latin? So remember, when we're talking about different plants and animals, they speak Latin. Why do they use Latin? It is to keep order between the languages, meaning that everyone just knows what's being talked about because it's already there and it's already spoken in Latin. So we know if we were in Germany, they would say the same words that we use for our for our classifications, they would use the same words, okay? All right, that is it for this lesson. What you will do to show me that you have followed along is I'm going to ask you the 2 questions on the features, okay? So you'll tell me if plants can or cannot move and if they make their own food or can't make their own food, and same for animals. Can or can they move, and can or can't they make their own food. All right, that is it for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.